What's a very disturbing fact almost nobody knows?
In child porn cases, someone has to actually watch the video beginning to end so they can testify about it in court to seal a conviction.
A friend of mine works for the federal government and his job each day is to watch child pornography so that they can prove that the person was in fact creating or distributing child porn. It's a fucked up job. In 1977, the average life expectancy in Cambodia was 18.91 years.
That's because the Khmer Rouge killed anyone who wore glasses, because that meant they knew how to read and therefore were a bad intellectual.
To save on ammunition, Khmer Rouge used to murder babies by grabbing them by their feet and repeatedly smashing their heads into a tree. Parents were made to watch this. If you go to any killing field, there's always a tree that was the baby killing tree. Longest time I've ever spent just staring at a tree.
Encephalitis lethargica causes you to slowly survive but not live. After bouts of deep sleep, where patients can be woken very easily but fall immediately back into the deep sleep, they're left with post-encephalitis symptoms. The main one being that their minds are fully aware and conscious, but they can't physically function, a bit like locked-in syndrome, and they display extreme apathy. They even know they're displaying apathy but can't express any emotions. So they're completely stuck, until someone throws a ball at them, which they then can immediately catch. Or until someone holds their hand and walks alongside them, then they can suddenly walk. Otherwise nothing. So bizarre.
It used to be believed that babies as old as 15 months couldn't feel pain. As a result, doctors would perform surgery without anesthesia. Doctors used muscle relaxants on the infants to prevent squirming, essentially paralyzing the babies for the duration of the procedure. How long ago was this? Reports indicate that this continued up until the 1980s.
As an infant in the late 80s, I fell and split the top of my scalp open. Local doc refused to numb my skin. BC according to him, babies that little, I was maybe a year old, if that, don't feel pain. I'm very glad I can't remember back that far because it would probably have really fucked me up.
Due to fresh drinking water being so scarce on the Galapagos Islands, some bird species, such as the Galapagos hawk, have adapted by drinking the blood of other animals.
Approximately 2,100 children are reported missing every day in the US, or one every 41 seconds. On the bright side, most will be returned unharmed.
On the bleak side, the survival rate very rapidly declines over time. On the even bleaker side, in the cases of missing young adult men in the U.S., there's fair chance a missing individual will be ruled deceased after a rather short search with minimal evidence. Even if no body is found, generally it's labeled as deceased due to natural causes, i.e., drowning in any nearby source of water, getting lost in any nearby woods, just getting lost anywhere and dying. After which the search is completely abandoned.
Yeah, the whole 48 hours rule is pretty disturbing. Mission goes from rescue to recovery terrifyingly quickly. Even though abduction is top of the heap for bad scenarios, it surprises a lot of people that a good portion of those missing kids are special needs children that literally just wandered off into the world, and as you said, die somewhere alone. I can see why parents look into locators and other ways to keep tabs on their kids' location.
The Romans used to torture people by having goats lick their feet. Goats like salt, so they would soak their feet in salt water. Eventually the goat's tongue was rough enough that the skin would wear away, then you'd have a wound with salt trickling in.
Organophosphates, including the chemical weapon sarin gas, work by inhibiting your muscles' ability to relax. Your muscles basically constrict and can't unconstrict, causing what feels like a muscle cramp through your entire body, your arms, your chest, your eyes, your tongue, everything. It most frequently kills via asphyxiation, because you can't exhale. Surviving means a permanent, irrecoverable loss of motor function, even with rapid medical treatment.
Also originally discovered while chemists were trying to make a more effective insecticide. I'd say they succeeded.
According to the FBI, over 40% of murders go unsolved. Meaning if you get killed, there's a pretty good chance the person who killed you will not spend a day in jail.
I think about the likelihood of a murder being solved in the small town where I live sometimes. For example, say when 911 gets called after the discovery, it's not going to be some TV, CSI scene where the detective is like, but what do I see here? This hair is from a rare breed of Mexican cat that's only sold as one exotic breed pet shop, and then they go on to check sale records and track down the killer. Here, it would be more like, our one and only, fat-ass cop shows up after about an hour or so, and just sorta bumbles around contaminating the shit out of any possible evidence, not doing any good at all. And if by chance a larger department actually stepped in to do some investigating, the scene would be garbage. I could murder all damn day.
If it makes you feel better, small town and rural police actually tend to solve a higher percentage of murders for a variety of reasons compared to their big city counterparts, though there are obviously exceptions.
A vitamin D deficiency can make you suicidal, and deficiencies among adults is very common. Like more than 50% of the population in the US.
My vitamin D number was single digit when I went to see my doctor because I felt depressed. I now take a big weekly dose along with diet change and sunlight to feel normal. If I hadn't gone to the doctor when I did, I might not have been able to face another winter.
There are 8 nukes that are missing all around the world.
Oh, that's actually not all of them. According to this, there's a grand total of 51 nuclear weapons lost in the world, 40 Russian, 11 American. One of them is apparently half a mile off the coast of Georgia, and the city of Savannah is within its blast radius.
The lost Tybee bomb, named because it was dropped off coast of Tybee Island, which is incredibly close to Savannah. We don't know if the bomb is actually capable of nuclear detonation because it might not have a core, but then again it might have a core and be able to go nuclear. We don't even know if it's still there. One fisherman claimed his net got caught on something a few days after the bomb was jettisoned. Some believed it to be the bomb. Another report is that the Soviets found it and took it instead. Most likely though it's there and not nuclear capable, even then it still has a metric-ass ton of conventional explosives in it that could go off and maul the area it's dropped at.
It's pretty easy to create false memories.
This is why memories brought back through therapeutic hypnosis treatments in attempt to uncover how the patient experienced trauma don't hold up in court. Your mind can just make up something that never happened or didn't happen quite how you remember. There's a really interesting study where scientists basically coerced people into remembering things that never happened to them. If I can find, I'll link it.
My whole life I've had this memory of my parents taking me and my sister to Graceland in Memphis after Elvis died. It was within just a couple years of his death. I have this whole memory of the trip, even going to eat pancakes somewhere. A few years ago, I'm 53 now, I mentioned our trip to my mum and my sister as we were driving. It took them a while to convince me, even a call to my dad, but evidently not only have we never went to Graceland as a family, we never went to Memphis either. So other than driving through Memphis, I've never even been there, let alone to see Elvis. The memory is so vivid. It still freaks me out to know now that I've never been. My mind still thinks we've been. I can feel the sun on my face from the early morning of waiting in line that day. It's nuts.
The first face transplant was for an 8-year-old girl named Sandeep Kaur, who got her entire face ripped off by getting her hair caught in a thresher in 1994. The parents came in with her face in 2 pieces in a plastic bag. The transplant was a success, and the girl grew up and is studying medicine. And if you've ever wondered what a face torn off looks like, they have photos of it that aren't bloody, but very disturbing. Here you go. https://imager.com/gallery/eeknoke. And here's a music video of a bridge for guinea pigs in a Japanese mall. https://youtube.be/bq9goik.
There are strains of crescent bacteria that are resistant to all known antibiotics.
I've said it on here before, but it still disturbs me to think about. Moray eels have a second set of jaws and teeth inside their throat. They latch on to prey with their primary jaws, and then the second set can move forward and either latch on and pull the prey down their throat or eat away at larger prey without having to let go. Creepy as fuck.
Non-avian dinosaurs did not go extinct immediately at the asteroid strike. There would have been a period when the survivors kept on, slowly declining in number, starving to death before being able to mate and produce offspring.
Tens of thousands of people in America were forcibly sterilized by the government as recent as 1981.
It's still technically legal and regularly happens. And then there are a lot of cases where people aren't physically forced, but are definitely coerced. There are still news stories about this, and the most recent one I can remember was from 2013.
As recently as the early 1800s, people ate parts of corpses, believing them to have medicinal properties. Blood, power ground up from the human skull, and human fat were all thought to be cures for various ailments.
Arguably, it still goes on today, with the practice of consuming placenta for its dubious health benefits.
There was a fad for eating mummies. It turns out that there's a limited supply of mummies, so people started making mummies for other people to eat.
There are little microscopic mites that live on your face, including your eyelids and eyelashes, and you can't get rid of. All they do is just eat dead skin cells, oils, and hormones that gather on your face.
There is a type of mushroom that can grow on small bugs and control them.
Cordyceps. It has hundreds of strains, including ones that can hijack ants, small spiders and even tarantulas. If it's any consolation, mammal bodies are far too hostile for cordyceps to survive in, although most insects and other non-mammalian smaller animals are vulnerable to cordyceps, although it would have to have an adapted strain to be able to incubate in its non-native animal of choice. If you were to put the entire lifespan of the universe, from the Big Bang to the final heat death, onto a 24-hour clock, at the universe's current age, 13.8 billion years, we would not have reached the end of the first 30 seconds. If you were to go into the far future, past the point where there are no more solar systems, the planets have either been destroyed or become rogue planets, where there are no more galaxies, everything either being swallowed up by black holes or being ejected from the galaxy, no more anything of normal matter due to proton decay, and no more black holes due to Hawking radiation, even here at this point, you would not have reached 12 o'clock noon on our universe clock. The universe will spend most of its life as a dark, cold, empty void. You would be unlikely to find a single surviving subatomic particle in an area the size of the current observable universe, 98 billion light-years across, until the background temperature reaches -460 degrees Fahrenheit, -273 degrees Celsius, 0 Kelvin, at which point entropy wins, time becomes meaningless and the universe remains in a cold, dead state for all eternity. Edit. Wow, never thought my existential dread-inducing rambling would earn gold. Thank you, kind stranger.
At any moment a nearby star could possibly become a gamma-ray burster, and point a jet of radiation at the Earth that would vaporize us instantly. Math says a gamma-ray burster located 100 light-years away that aimed at us directly would generate the energy of 100 Hiroshima bombs per square mile, across the entire exposed surface of the Earth. Anything caught in this blast directly would be vaporized instantly. It would also instantly boil the oceans and rip the atmosphere off the planet. It would end all life and leave the Earth a charred cinder in space. And it is 100% impossible to see one coming, since it's moving at the speed of light, because gamma rays are light.
If you get bitten by a human, you absolutely have to go to the hospital right away because the amount of deadly bacteria in any given person's mouth could actually kill you if it enters your bloodstream.
Aren't there theories that say how we were gonna evolve to have venomous bites?
I think we already have. I had a friend who was bitten by a crackhead and he didn't get to the hospital soon enough, so he ended up with many of his organs shutting down due to sepsis.
If pigs get fed meat, they start to cannibalize and eat each other. Had to harvest them early 1 year because of it.
Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, used to be called IG Farben, and were the ones who produced the Zyklon B chemical the Nazi used in the gas chambers of the concentration camps.
There are people out there now being held captive somewhere, whether it's for sex, ransom, or simply because their captor is batshit crazy.
I worry that a significant number of young women that come up missing are, as I type, being kept captive in some pervert's basement.
People talk about slavery as though it's this thing that happened in the past to African Americans but is now over. Nope. Slavery is a thriving trade with a lot of money involved, generally targeting children and young women. It's pretty horrible.
As a cancer researcher, I was fascinated to learn that the most common cancer is lung cancer. The majority of the patients were, of course, smokers. But that's not the worst part. The second biggest cause was secondhand smoking, usually from a close relative or spouse who is a smoker. So millions of people are unknowingly leading their relatives, children and spouse towards death because of their smoking habits.
I knew a guy who desperately wanted to be transformed into a beaver. He was severely disturbed, obviously, and gradually ended up isolated from all of his friends and colleagues. He was hospitalized multiple times from trying to perform operations on himself. Last I heard, he was on his way to China to meet up with a doctor who could secretly fix him. He legitimately hoped to end up with enlarged incisors, a thick coat of fur, webbed feet, and a large paddle-shaped tail stuffed with fat that surgeons could transplant from his belly. There was lots of talk about breaking, sawing, and rearranging bones, as well as being put in a cage. He said he had wanted this since birth. He also hoped to find a partner who was willing to be transformed. Not sure how easy it is to come across such people. The plan was to eventually meet up with some actual beavers and live alongside them. The procedure was supposed to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, which he inherited from a deceased family member. He said it carried a high risk of mortality. The night my friends last saw him, he was sobbing uncontrollably in the restroom of a local tavern. He told us to take one last look, because the next time we saw him, he would finally be a beaver. I have searched for this man online and never found anything. I like to think that he is somewhere out there on the other side of the world, splashing around and building a lodge.